Welcome to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining us. I've got Susan Steinbrecher, CEO of Steinbrecher And Associates, on the show with me today. Susan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. Tell us about your business.
So we specialize in leadership development. So that translates into executive coaching services. We custom design training solutions. We facilitate off-site leadership retreats. I've written books. We consult. We coach. All kinds of good stuff.
Give me a list of the books.
Oh, Heart Center Leadership is our first book, and second edition was released, can't believe it's already been 5 years ago, second edition. First edition was 13 years ago. Wrote an Amazon bestseller called Kensho, which was all about trying to provide inspiration at a time when it was 2008, when people were ready to jump off cliffs. Right? And we kept saying, there's a silver lining to all of this. So that was that message. And then Meaningful Alignment is our latest work, and that book will be out this fall.
What's that one going to be about?
Meaningful alignment is, how do you have the conversation with someone that you know you need to have, but you're avoiding at all costs, right?
Okay.
So that can be personally or professionally. And
those uncomfortable conversations.
Uncomfortable, people are afraid of conflict, or they think it's going to be about conflict. And of course, we bring in the history of whatever interactions we've had with this person into every conversation. Mm-hmm. So sometimes people are like, well, I remember, boy, John got really pissed off at me last week, so I really don't want to have that conversation with him this time. Well, nothing gets done without having those kind of conversations. So we teach people how to do that more effectively, and we coach people how to do that more effectively.
You really have to get into their head to be able to get somebody the courage to come up and actually face that kind of potential conflict, but know that they have the confidence to overcome the past and be able to move it forward and get a resolution that's actually ends in a success of the objective.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so in a workplace, that could be two peers that have to collaborate well on a project. Maybe they have a different point of view of how to get it done. It could be something as simple as that, or it could be a husband and wife, or a parent and a child that are trying to get alignment on whatever the topic may be.
Those are tremendous skills to be able to relay and instill in other people.
Absolutely, right.
Okay, one of the things you want to talk about is the inability to effectively handle high-stakes conversations. Mm-hmm. We just talked about conflict resolution, but the high-stakes conversations, what are you talking about on that statement?
Yeah, I think because people do generally lack the confidence, competence, and comfort to address those types of conversations, it's important that we learn those skills and build those confidences, as you mentioned. And what people don't realize is that as human beings, we're probably more emotionally motivated than we are actually logically motivated. We try to address everything with logic, and it typically fails, but because we're really emotional beings. And what I mean by that is that in order for me to approach this individual, especially in a high-stakes conversation, I have to understand there's two primary needs I'm trying to get met with this individual. One side of the equation is the personal need, and that is that need to be valued, appreciated, listened to, cared about, respected, etc. If that need is not met in that conversation, you're never going to get your objective accomplished. So it's sort of the gateway in. But then there's the other side of the equation, which is I need to get the objective accomplished. Like somehow we have to gain alignment on whatever the topic is. So we propose a 6-step sort of process to help you get there.
Give me an idea.
Yeah, so the first is, and it's going to seem really crazy, common sense, the purpose for the conversation. Now, I know that sounds silly, but I mean, how many of us have been in conversations 2-3 minutes go by and we still have no idea what we're there to talk about?
Exactly.
Right? So literally stating as the first step is, the reason I wanted to talk with you today is X.
Got it.
Packaged with meeting that personal need. So thank you for meeting with me today. I greatly appreciate your time. I know how busy you are. So that shows the proper respect, and the person probably is coming in, depending on the history of the relationship you have with this person, maybe nervous, maybe worried, whatever that could be. But it starts to disarm some of that negative emotion. And then we move into what the impact is of this particular issue if we're not aligned. What do you see the impact to be? Here's what I see the impact to be. Often we assume that person understands that, and we're wrong most times. They don't understand it.
Yeah.
Right.
I get that.
So that's kind of our second step. And then the third is, asking that individual, what do they think are the solutions for this particular issue? How can we gain alignment here?
I've always found that to be effective.
Yes, versus sharing all of your ideas.
Well, you actually create a conversation. You're not just
it's a dialogue.
Talking at somebody.
Exactly, and especially in the leadership space, and we coach a lot of leaders, and one of the biggest things that I hear myself say over and over and over again is please be careful to ask questions versus tell. So what do they think is the solution? Well, if that's their idea, what's the pro of that? What's the con of that? What's the long-term plan of that? What resources might they need? Not in an interrogating way, but in an inquisitive or fact-finding way, which allows you to understand what's going on in this person's head. Wow, everything on a silver platter, you now really know how this person's thinking. So asking those questions first before offering your own input, which is hard for a lot of leaders, but really important.
Why do you think
alignment.
it's hard for them to do that?
Because I think they've been awarded, or rewarded, I should say, all their life for having the answers.
Right.
So it's an autopilot response. I have experience, I have knowledge, I know how to do this, so here's what we need to do.
Or they're under pressure to always be the one with the answers.
Often, and usually in most cases, though, as we know, you get so much more when it's a collaborative process and everyone puts their input.
100% agreement.
Right.
Yeah,
So that's what happens. We shut people down when we come in with, well, here's the answer. Here's what we need to do. Here's why we need to do it. Well, the other person hasn't really emotionally committed to that. They may comply, but are they committed? That's a completely different energy or emotional response.
I agree with you. That's the way we work around here. All right, meaningful alignments. You have something you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, part of the process I was sharing with you is how to have that meaningful alignment type of conversation. How do you gain collaboration with somebody else? How do you get them on the same page? And it is amazing to me how many executives that we coach that are really struggling with getting engagement, whether it's with a peer, a direct report, a loved one for that matter. When again, if you really take into consideration that we're emotional beings and that there's emotional resiliency and composure. That's part of this equation.
Let me
plus the skill set.
Stop you and ask you right
Sure.
there. This is kind of like a society question. Do you see that since we're moving far deeper and deeper into a digital society, that the interpersonal relationship, the people that you work with, tends to be a little bit more removed, and that's the problem here? We're not coming back and saying, well, yes, we work here, but it is kind of a family. And we have to tolerate each other's differences and be able to bring the other person into what we're trying to do as an engagement versus this is the military, this is the chain of command, and those are the orders. Is that what I'm getting from you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The big thing right now is, it's kind of understood that if you're a leader in an organization, you have a certain amount of IQ going. It's kind of a given that you're not going to get you're not going to get to a certain position without having some intelligence here. But that's about 25% of the effectiveness. The other 75% has a lot to do with their emotional intelligence. And that's the big thing right now, and this is the area that most organizations are funding, if you will, because their leaders are bright, but they don't know how to, they're not emotionally intelligent beings. They don't understand the impact of a lack of interpersonal skills or lack of being able to collaborate or get input from other people and respect that individual's ideas. They don't realize the impact that has. And so now it's become the big thing, right?
So that leads me to the question about being empathic. With some people, they want to put that out as, oh, you're a psychic, but you have to have some kind of feeling for who you're working with. Do you find that that is something that is teachable to people, that they'll be able to pick up what's really going on with the person across from them in the conversation? Is that a necessary skill to succeed these days?
I really think it is. Especially as an executive coach for myself, I've gone through all kinds of training around that. It's like, what's really going on with this individual? I'm hearing certain tone or voice and word choices, and I'm seeing body movement. I'm seeing all kinds of things that's giving me a whole picture. We're all wired to be able to do that. Our brain is wired to be able to sense what's going on for protection purposes and security. So now it's using it for a really good purpose. It's like, how can I figure out what's really happening with this individual? And based on that, where do I need to go to meet them where they are? Because if I don't do that, I can't really influence them to a course of direction that maybe I'm looking for. So that's where, again, we have to take the time. And of course, as you know, we're in a soundbite society, text society. Everything is said in cryptic, messages, and so much is falling through the cracks as a result of that. And we're all paying the price for that. Society's paying the price for that. We see that in every possible way. And businesses are paying the price for this, and we're in the homes, I mean, across the board.
Yeah, you've answered everything I could possibly come up with, but I know that there are so many untold chapters of things, cases that you've gone through. Is there anything else you want to say before we close?
Just the main thing is the thing we're seeing also that's the most disconcerting right now is the lack of emotional composure. So not only do people not have the skill set often to have conversations, they're not understanding what we call the inside game part, which is half the equation of success. How do I maintain my composure and resiliency when I'm having one of these tougher conversations? And we look at that two ways.
That's a real skill.
It is a real skill, but there is a skill. To your point, skills can be taught. And these are areas that we look at proactively. How do I build the reserve of strength that I need to call upon when I need it? So for example, if I lift weights every day, I'm going to gain some strength. So if I need to pick up a heavy box, relatively effortless because I've got the strength in reserve. If I don't do that, and now I'm put into a situation of lifting a very heavy box, this is going to be painful. This will be hard. It'll be a lot of effort. So proactively, we talk about what are ways to build that mind, body, and spirit. So we look at ways physically, taking care of self, et cetera, reducing the mental chatter, and the spirit side really is things like meditation or whatever that keeps us grounded and realizing it's not that big of a deal. Don't make it more than it is. And how to calm the body down, especially when you're in the moment of feeling yourself getting flipped out inside.
Or reacting.
Or reacting versus responding, I call it. There's a big difference. You know, we're reacting, we're pulling the emotional trigger, we're activated, a different part of the brain is now activated, our critical thinking skills are no longer in charge, our amygdala's in charge, which is fight, flight, or freeze. Doesn't serve us really well when we're having one of those kind of conversations.
You very rarely ever hear somebody talk about, I mean, you hear got to control your mind, you have to control your emotions, but you very rarely ever hear somebody bring in spirit into this, mind, body, spirit, like you said.
Right.
And I'm wondering, do you think that society is finally moving in that direction where there really is a trinity on this control?
Finally there is, because there's been enough impact and pain, you know, in our world as a result of that. And so now for the first time, I mean, in our workshop, we're teaching mindfulness meditation to build that capacity and strength so they are more grounded and more centered when they're in the tough conversation. We're seeing organizations that are funding tremendous amount of dollars teaching their leaders mindfulness meditation. There's training classes. I mean, all kinds of industries are starting to move down that path. We're seeing a magazine called Mindfulness. I mean, this is not stuff you would have even brought into corporate America even 5 years ago. I mean, when we launched this work, Meaningful Alignment, we tested the market. We weren't sure how this was going to go. We had a retail type of industry, senior level team in the room, and we asked them, just for the purpose of trying this out and practicing this, would you be willing to play with us for 5 minutes and do this mindfulness meditation? And we were actually surprised that they were like, sure, because we thought they were immediately going to go, oh, this is getting too woo-woo for us. But they were like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So we were like, okay, maybe things are really changing, and that's what we're really noticing with all of our clients now. They have an appetite for it today because they know it's not working.
So it's the evolution of the human race.
It
by
really
actually
is.
Seeing who they really are and being able to control
Absolutely.
it and not become warlike.
Right, exactly. There is a better way. There is a better way.
Thanks for being a guest.
Absolutely.
That was so helpful for me.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Glad to be with you.
All right, you've been watching CEO Money with Michael Yorba. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.